Shut up, older.
Hello, and welcome back to the SteelerFury.com podcast. I am your host, Jeremy Coleman. You know me as Smith of Smokums on the message boards, joined by the best colleagues that money can't buy, and Will Massack, you know him as Bradshaw Ben, and Corey Karbowski, you know him as Corey39.
Actually,
Gentlemen,
Corey has to show ID to get on the show. He's maybe not old enough.
Well, I'll tell you what I'm getting really old and tired about is this.
Drinking is a plus. I have a good one today.
Ooh, what
Our
are we
sponsor tonight?
by?
Sponsor tonight is the Lagunitas Little Something Something.
Oh,
And it's going to go down silky smooth. It's a smooth and silky wheat IPA. Not for you people who are gluten.
I wish I could give Tomlin a little something, but for him to wake the
the business
up already.
Yeah.
Seriously, good Lord. Just another shit show after a week of shit shows. Your Pittsburgh Steelers, ladies and gentlemen, becoming the first team over 500 to lose to two consecutive teams that are 8 games under 500. I believe that's the stat.
And listen to this, man. It's even worse. The Steelers have lost their last 4 games against a 2-win team.
Yeah.
Like this late in the season, 2-win team. It's amazing.
Pretty pathetic when you think about it. We touched on the fact that, we thought the Pittsburgh Steelers might win their last 5 games, and now it looks like we're going to lose every single one of them. Good Lord, Mitchell Trubisky looked like total dog shit again through the first half. Yeah, played a little bit better in the second half, but by that time, the game was over, folks. So
that's all, folks. Man, I mean, I don't know. It's like I'm convinced that the Steelers went so far out of their way this offseason to make sure that Kenny Pickett didn't really have any competition for the job. Like, we don't want him looking over his shoulder at, worrying about the guy behind him, and there's no quarterback competition. And so they have 2 backups that are like the fans were never going to be clamoring for. Nobody's out there being like, put in Mitch. Now they're so desperate. They're like, put in Rudolph. And I'm like, did you see 2019? So yeah, it's like a quarterback isn't everything, but when you already are offensively dysfunctional and subject to wild swings of play quality with your offensive line or receiving talent or running game, then you can't win. You can't beat anybody with crappy quarterback play. So, I mean, we couldn't even count on Mitch Trubisky to like take a few chances. He wasn't even doing that as we successfully predicted last week. So yeah, it's grim, fellas.
I mean, this offense is not designed to take any chances whatsoever. It doesn't matter who's under quarterback or who's not. Just completely pathetic. I want to blow up the whole thing. Like there cannot be a single offensive person brought back next year when it comes to the staff. They just need to completely clean house, start over. Like the people in house, that they're not working out. We just gotta have to flush the entire thing. But I mean, Will, I know you brought it up before, but it's just like, who the hell does Tomlin get to come in and implement wide changes?
I mean, who would come? I mean, the only person even remotely maybe interested in coming would be Mike Munchak, but I'm not even sure Mike Munchak is a good offensive coordinator. I say that because he's familiar with the organization, they're familiar with him, but other than that, like anybody's like a rising star in the NFL, coaching wise, offensive wise, I don't know why they would come to Pittsburgh. It doesn't. Maybe the kind of person that needs to prove something. Like they need to prove that they can overcome even Mike Tomlin and a defensive-minded coach. That's grasping at straws.
Yeah,
we're clamoring for Mason Rudolph. The only reason Mason Rudolph isn't a high school quarterbacks coach somewhere is because we signed him back to be our number 3 quarterback. He had 0 offers, and then he came we didn't know who our 3rd quarterback was going to be. Then he came clawing back, kind of towards the beginning of the season. It's like, I'll take the job, I'll take it, because he didn't want to stay here.
No, he did not.
He didn't have any other options.
I think his agent just called him one day and was like, "Look, man, pocket the money. They're not gonna. Nothing's gonna. You don't have to do anything. Take 5 snaps a week, in practice, and call it a day. Call it good."
Yeah. I'm with Jeremy. I don't think there's a single position group on the offense that you can even remotely suggest keeping someone. The receivers, you get 70% effort on half their routes and all sorts of drama issues. The receiver coach, in theory, should be a buffer between Tomlin and the receivers. That's clearly not the case. Tight ends, Darnell Washington's gotten worse throughout the year. Footwork's gotten worse, hand placement's gotten worse. Same thing with the O-line. Did Broderick Jones look better in his first start or these last 3 games? Who's gotten better on the O-line? Does Isaac Semalea look better before he got here or after he got here? Mason Cole, he's gotten even worse than he was at the beginning of the year. And then don't get me started on quarterbacks. Quarterbacks, you don't even say anything about those. Then running backs, we've had issues in pass pro all year picking up the right blitzer and getting out into their checkdowns. So there's not a single position group where you can even remotely justify keeping anyone, which ironically, they were all on the 2018 NC State Wildcats or Wolfpack, NC State Wolfpack. So
how is Jalen Samuels not still on this team or coaching for
it? Well, Godwin Iwubuke, I think his name, took Anthony McFarland's spot, and even he's made some questionable decisions on kickoff. Like it might have been last week. I never even said this. It's either last week or this week. He let a kickoff bounce on the 2. That's a cardinal sin. If that thing checks, you're in trouble. Like, you're in big trouble. That's just something that shouldn't happen. So, I mean, you could argue a lot of the stuff about the defensive staff. I mean, how many position groups are elevated from where the talent is to where they're actually playing? It seems for the most part it's just talent kind of winning through.
Yeah,
but
that's what I was going to say, Jeremy. You said offensive clear house offensively. Why would any of the other what is the claim to fame for any of the other coaches staying? Like, it feels like a season where it would be a perfect time to start over with the coaching.
I mean, I will come to the defense of one coach. I think Carl Dunbar has done a decent job at defensive line, and
I agree with that.
I don't know who our outside linebackers coach is off the top of my head, but I mean, he's done a pretty good job with Highsmith over the last few years. Not saying that, he's responsible for Highsmith's, production and work ethic and all that, but it's like, I think you could at least give a pass to like Carl Dunbar, who's, helped develop Cameron Hayward to a degree, down the later part of his career. Keanu Benton's coming on a little strong. Loudermilk is playing better. I'm not saying he's playing good, but he's playing.
We all thought he was
better.
Yeah,
we all thought he was going to get cut potentially, after the draft or going into this year. So I mean, who's the other guy I'm thinking of? Montravius Adams, a guy who
playing above his pay grade.
Not great, but he's managed to stick around, become an impact player here and there on a few snaps. So I mean, I'll come to those 2 guys' defenses, and then I rest my case, Your Honor.
It's a good thing that we have a head coach that's good with clock management and with choosing his challenges and when to go for it and when to not go for it.
And studies analytics. Yeah.
Resolved.
Oh my God. That might be the most infuriating part of this past weekend. So don't get me wrong, everyone. We started out like absolute dog shit, but we clawed our way back, right? We clawed our way back, which is what we like to do. Make games interesting. So we have this brilliant idea of, we may not get the ball back. So we're going to go for it on like our own 29, like 4th and 2, our own 29, or 4th and short, even shorter.
We were surprised.
4th and inches or something like that. So we call a timeout.
Of course we call a timeout because we can't ever do any kind of like a crucial play without a timeout first. Like, God forbid we would want to surprise the defense. Sorry, go ahead.
Right. So then we sneak it, we convert. It's like, okay, all right, ballsy. This is probably the last drive of the game. Okay.
Good call.
And just a few minutes later, we decide, we should punt from the 38 instead. Like, are you fucking kidding me? Sorry. Excuse my language, folks, but that is the most asinine thing ever. Not only do we burn one of our timeouts on 4th and inches from our own 29, we decide to punt 9 yards later with 2 less minutes to go down the field. Oh my God. That did it for me. Like, that was game over with Mike Tomlin. This I hate to use this term because I don't want to be too harsh, but this clown will never learn. Like it is beyond idiotic. If that was any other coach,
Well, Jeremy, it took you
getting
2 years. It took you 2 years to get to where I was in the Cleveland playoff game when they was punting from midfield down 2 touchdowns. It's
I didn't like that either, Will. But
no,
yes,
that was the end for me. I was like a defender for a little while, and then I was like, okay, like like this and that. And that game was like, oh my God, you are giving up the season because you're afraid of being embarrassed. It's the worst. I don't know, man. Like,
and I decided to keep track of the fourth quarter mishaps.
Yes.
Would you like to run through the fourth quarter mishaps? Because at first I was like, okay, hopefully we don't have that many. But then the list certainly populated. There were like 8 things on the list, Corey. I mean, it was like I thought, we were just going to be like, oh, there's going to be a few things. No, there was an entire list.
Just the fourth quarter. So
in just the fourth quarter. That's right. We're not even like talking about just the entire game. We're talking fourth quarter mishaps, people. Corey, do you have that up?
Yep, I have them up. So
let's run through it.
I think a few of these, 2 or 3 of them are just execution errors. So like failed fourth down conversion inside the 15. I like the call. You didn't get it. I just figured that'd be worth the blunder. I didn't expect the rest of them to be coaching errors. So, timeout after a completely normal offense play after a first down. Just completely normal. You just end up burning a timeout. It's like 2nd and 2 or something like that. Yep. Then on the first and goal, from the 1, you go for a tight end sweep pass that was almost intercepted. On the 1, on the goal line. 4th and inches, the offense is ready to sneak. They burn a timeout just to QB sneak it anyways. This one got me. This is like high school shit. 2nd and 3, they threw a screen pass with even numbers on the perimeter. It was a 2-on-2. They weren't stacked, and they just threw the screen. I'm not sure how that happens at the NFL level. I'm really not. There was no apex. There was 2 even guys lined up like it was man. You throw it, it's a 1-yard loss. 4th and 3 from the 38, they punt it from the other 38. They punt it. And then 4th and 2, they have a go route as their only answer versus man with Deontay Johnson, who, mind you, he does a lot of things well. He ran like a 4.6 something 40.
Wait, you forgot the last one that I.
Yes, I didn't write that one down here. That was the.
So on the last drive, the sort of do or die drive, you have 15 seconds or 13 seconds, or whatever, left in the game. You're actually maybe a 20-yard pass play away from a desperation field goal, but not an impossible field goal, like in the 60s, right? And the one thing you can't do is throw the ball in the middle of the field. So what, of course, is Mitch too. He throws it in the middle of the field, not only in the middle of the field, but to 11, a guy who couldn't get from the middle field to the sideline if you had a rope and you pulled him. If he was on a bungee, he couldn't make it to the sideline before the clock ran out. So at any rate, that was the final nail in the coffin.
Yeah, so for those of you keeping track at home, that was 8 blunders in the fourth quarter alone. Like, we're not even talking about the rest of the game. We had plenty in the first quarter, too. I mean, good God. So
6 of those were concrete coaching. Like, 2 of them were kind of execution where, failed fourth down conversion. Like, it is what it is. But those were coaching errors. Those were bad calls. Those were bad situational decisions. Yeah.
And actually, the last one that I mentioned, that's a coaching thing too, because it's like at the minimum, you have to say, look, you can't, when you give the play call, you got to say, can't throw it in the middle of the field.
Don't throw the post.
Got to be the sideline or deep. Like, forget it. Anyway, so it'll be.
But yeah, so just.
We're all so fired up. It's like, this is like, you guys were so positive and so mild, man. Trying to look for the optimist take on things. Like that's only like 6 weeks ago. What has happened to you? Even 3 weeks ago, we were talking about them winning every game, maybe.
Jesus. Even Jeremy in the beginning of the year was a bit more positive. I distinctly remember we had some win in the first 3 weeks where I ended up just burying them for like 15 minutes. And I was like, man, I feel so negative. But everything evens out. We talked about return to the mean at some point, but
100%.
We
there it is.
Did.
Last 2 weeks.
We certainly did. So I have to ask you guys this question because I feel like it's happening. I don't know if the media feels like it's happening. Is Tomlin slowly losing this locker room, or is it just ineptitude beyond all measures? Because I mean, George Pickens doesn't even look like he's trying half the time out there. Deontay Johnson, the same. Just I don't know. I know the language from our diva wide receivers shouldn't be indicative of the entire team, but it just doesn't feel like this team is getting the message anymore for like his message. He's not resonating. It doesn't feel like anymore. So what do you guys think?
By the way, I'm going to give this to Corey to answer, but it's not just the wide receivers. That's a misconception. The tight end, like their number one tight end, didn't even run the route or look at all for the ball on an interception that kind of was a turning point in the game. So there's that. Secondly, Mykal Walker, like there are certain things that he's done actually better than I expected him to do. But this weekend was maybe the second or third example of him having a shot if he just went all out on a play to knock a guy out of bounds. Like the guy made a big gain and he got inside the 5-yard line. But if your linebacker just gives effort to the full, he might probably knocks that guy out of bounds. So when you see guys not hustling, Corey, I'm guessing that's the window into what does the locker room feel about the coach. That would be my guess. But you're a guy that's been in the locker room more recently than me, so you tell me.
Yeah, and I think the big term that you're looking at there is our guys bought in. Our guys, it's are you willing to lay your body down for the other guy? Something, Cam Hayward, you see him, he's not fast anymore. It is what he is. He's an old D tackle. But you still see him, he's sprinting. He's a guy who's still laying his body down on the line. You've got guys, Mykal Walker, that's a guy you brought in, not hustling. You've got basically half your offense not hustling. How often are you seeing offensive linemen up with a running back when they're getting tackled 10, 15 yards down the field? It doesn't seem like guys are really bought in. One thing that I kind of thought about, I saw some quote today. This is a teeny bit off topic, but it talked about how guys want to play for Tomlin. And it was, these guys want to play for Tomlin.
Peter King.
Why it was the defense of why Tomlin still got it. When have we gotten a discount for a defensive player? Like, yeah, we got Patrick Peterson. Patrick Peterson was cited as a guy. Yeah, we got him in the building. Did we sign Patrick Peterson for anything less than what was expected? I think the answer is no. I thought it was about what we expected. We said we should have paid Sutton his money. I mean, that would have been a better decision based off of this year.
You could have sent a fifth-round pick. You could have sent a fifth-round pick for Stephen Gilmore.
Yeah,
that's a better use of the money.
I'm just not really sure where, you say guys want to play for Tomlin. If guys wanted to play for Tomlin, they would take pay cuts. Like, they would take pay cuts to be like, I just want to be a part of the Steelers so bad. I think it's more that, Patrick Peterson goes through the day and just like, hey, if the Steelers call and they offer what I think I deserve, I like Coach T. I think people like Tomlin like that. But if you're using that as the sole reason why Tomlin should stay or why Tomlin, is still a great coach, I can't think of anyone who's taken a discount. And that's the only way guys are really going to show if they care, if they like Coach Tomlin that much. So that's kind of my view on it. It's clear. I mean, when our supposed captain, Najee, started making snide comments weeks ago, that's when I knew that, I'm surprised it hasn't gotten out more. But if you go into those, especially the receivers, the linebackers, any group chats that these players have, there's going to be zero positivity. It's going to be guys complaining about the coaching. It's going to be guys complaining about this and other position groups, guys complaining about the QB. There's just no team. There's no buy-in. It's just not – for a team that's this level of talent, especially with these quarterbacks, you would have to have everything else damn near perfect, and it's nowhere near that.
Yeah. I'm on board with you. It just doesn't. And Will, I know you said, it's not just the wide receivers. Those are just the ones I'm noticing the particularly bad body language, because it's easy to point them out rather than, Mykal Walker, even though now that you say that does ring a bell. That doesn't feel like he's always out there running his hardest or whatever. But I think the biggest problem is there's no leaders on this team across the board anymore. The only leaders are on defense, and that's Watt, that's Minka, that's Hayward. So
And
the
the thing
defense generally has a high effort level. Offense, there's no one out there right there. There are no leaders.
there's going to be a problem when Mason Cole attempts to be your leader, and when your leader's just not very good. And
or Najee Harris for the same. I mean, for the same reasons. It's like
Me too.
Sorry.
So like that. I mean, that's, and even then on defense, like, you know, you can say these guys are leaders. Like Cam Hayward, he gets guys right. He gets his position group right. You know, Patrick Peterson, he's coaching up young guys. But I mean, there's not really any. There aren't guys playing above their weight. Like Mykal Walker's not playing better than Mykal Walker anywhere else. Patrick Peterson's not playing better than Patrick Peterson anywhere else. Trent Thompson, he's done basically what he's done anywhere when he's gotten a chance. Like he's not doing anything exceptional. He's playing solid football. But I mean, he played good preseason ball for us. Like it's not like this guy was some bum. So, you know, no one. I mean, that's the biggest thing with coaching. You know, you say Andy Reid's a hell of a coach, and you'd be right. You look at what, you know, Mike McDaniels is doing. He's elevating Tyreek Hill. You know how good of a coach you have to be to elevate a guy to Tyreek Hill level. You could just say, you know, we're going to let Tyreek run slants. We're going to let Tyreek run wills. We're going to put the receivers away from Tyreek. We're going to force a double. We're going to use the other guys, take advantage of the numbers. But no, he's elevating one of the best receivers in the league. Who on our team's elevated?
No, I mean, I would say the other thing is not that fun is everything, but you know, I mean, I'll speak slightly from my experience, but also in NFL terms, the team like Andy Reid and Mike McDaniel and Kyle Shanahan, you know, these are cats that like their teams, the coaches try to make it not only they press excellence in terms of their preparation, but fun, you know, so like keep everybody involved, make it fun to play together for each other. Cause that's the thing about football. If you are a selfish wide receiver, you might get some plays and you might have a lot of talent. You might, you know, whatever, get the job done sometimes. But if you work with the other guys, like if you run route combos, you know, spectacularly as a team, you can't stop that. You can't stop it. And it's rewarding. Same on defense. If you do your job in the scheme, plays come to you, the ball comes to you, it feels rewarding that you can stop other teams and it's fun. You know, it's not fun when it breaks down because people aren't prepared or the scheme isn't right or nobody cares to try to get rid of the, you know, improve the details, whatever. It's like I just feel like this team, you know, on either side of the football, do they look like they're having fun? They look like it's drudgery. They're just trying to make it through, you know, a quarter of football. Sorry, go ahead.
Well, this is something that I didn't even realize this until you were just saying that. So one of our best players on offense, George Pickens, we know everything he can do catching the ball. One of the things that you saw the most from him, especially last year, especially at Georgia, was that he would put dudes on their ass when he was blocking. Can you guys name a single time he's done that this year?
Yeah, it's like I'm telling you, they're going through the motions right now. They understand that they're on offense, especially that they're not going anywhere. And it's like nobody is going to get satisfied with the way it is right now. And so that thing about being bought in, you can see it on the field. They're not. They either don't believe in their coordinator, don't believe in their head coach, you know, opinion about offense. They don't believe in their quarterback, something, all of it, maybe, you know,
like that's something George, you know, he might not have been the most technically sound run blocker. And he might, you know, he had attitude concerns at Georgia, but his attitude concerns was because he punched some DB in the face. Like it's because he got a fight in the middle of the game. It wasn't an effort thing. He was always blocking hard. And you get this guy to Pittsburgh who, you know, the standards, Coach Mike Tomlin, he makes guys play hard. And, you know, it's kind of shocking. He had at least 7 or 8 pancakes last season. That's excellent for a receiver. I can't think he had one in the preseason. I haven't seen anything since the season started. Not one. And then look at his route tree. He didn't catch a ball past 10 yards.
wasn't targeted past 10
Wasn't targeted past 10 yards. I mean, his route tree looked like, you know, Allen Robinson's. Like, it's just neglect. It's neglect of scheme. It's neglect of utilizing your talent. There's so much wrong. And, you know, they might turn around and beat a shaky Colts team this upcoming week. But what's that going to show us, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we're just all kind of at this point of like, man, there's 4 more weeks of football.
I mean,
I'm not dreading the end of the season. Like I'm not itching to watch more Steelers football. It's just I just want to see change. Like that's the main thing I'm looking forward to.
The most telling thing about the press conference today that the head coach had was they're not interested in making changes this late in the season. That was a quote about the quarterback situation. He also referenced that about center. It's like, man, you're delusional. This is your time to find out stuff. Like, if you got a better option at center, if Spencer Anderson or somebody can go and play center, and show you something for next year, this is the runway to improving the team long term. But you're never going to view it that way because making changes is dangerous. You could end up worse than you are now. God forbid.
Never had a losing season.
That's the danger of ending for sure.
Yeah. So the quote from that press conference was, "I acknowledge that we have some that haven't been as good of late, but our behavior hasn't changed because we're not reactionary. We like to be out in front of those things, and we value routine things happening routinely."
To say they're not reactionary is like to say they're not reactionary is the that's like the epitome of who they are. They're definitely not reactionary. That's an understatement.
And I'll give him like almost an inkling of like leeway where there's been games where we're like, oh, okay, we need to cut. There was someone, I can't remember who, but we were like, we need to cut this person. We need to get rid of this person. Like, okay, Miles Killebrew. Miles Killebrew had a horrible game, comes out next game, gets a blocked punt. That's what made me think of it. And I'm like, maybe we are a little reactionary sometimes, but that stuff works when you're a good team. Like those kinds of lines work where like, if you're I don't know, who's a good, if like the Eagles even, they're even in a little danger, but the Eagles don't need to go out and fire their OC right now. There's some trouble for sure, but they're a good team. They were 10-2 2 weeks ago or whatever. Like they don't need to go out and make these wide scale changes. We have been mediocre for years now. I saw this stat. I really got into baseball this year because I've been so disenfranchised.
I'm sorry for you. I really am.
Yeah, right.
I've been so disenfranchised with the Pirates. Kutch signing back, I was like, because when Kutch got traded, I was like, I'm done. Like that was my favorite play. I'm like, I'm not watching this team anymore. Kutch signed back. I was like, I'm gonna start watching again. Everyone knows how bad the Pirates are. The Steelers have won the same amount of playoff games in the last 10 years as the Pittsburgh Pirates, seen as the poverty of baseball. They're a bottom 3 team, thought of by everyone. Bottom 3 team. They have the same amount of playoff wins in 10 years.
Yeah.
Ouch.
Yeah, man, this is brutal.
I've already said that's a pretty low blow.
Yeah, if you're being compared to the Pirates in anything, you're in bad shape.
Yeah.
Not even compared. It's even. Like it's not even like, oh, the Steelers are almost as bad as they have as many Pirates wins or as many wins as the Pirates. And the Pirates were tanking for 5 years. Like they just blew up the team. The Steelers have been trying to win.
Hey, can I have the last word on this? Because I know we're going to move on to the matchup.
Yeah.
I just feel like what we're feeling and what we're all experiencing as Steelers fans right now is what it feels like when you're just about to rebuild. It's like you're just about to like clear the house, get new coaching in, figure out the 2 or 3 players on each side that you want to keep and just kind of start fresh. Like if there was ever an opportunity for them to start fresh with a new coaching staff and a new mentality, the ground is ready for it, right? The ground is ready for it, for a coach to come in and like Chuck Noll did when he came in and be like, most of you aren't going to be here next, by the time we reach next year. But it's like, I'm willing to have anybody who wants to be here and deserves it. And it's like, like imagine a new coaching staff coming in and injecting that kind of energy in and not having the same old concepts, the same players, whether they can play or not. I just feel like this is exactly what this franchise needs. And I don't care if it comes at the cost of a poor year next year. I feel like the long-term prospects for that would be better than sticking with the same thing. But, I hope to be wrong.
And just to go on that real quick, if you were looking at offense and defense, how many guys would you keep? Defense, you're going to have Watt, Highsmith, Benton.
I don't know. I mean, you can't even keep anybody. You can't keep anybody that's 30 if you're rebuilding. I mean, it doesn't make any sense. Take the picks.
Yeah. And then offense, I mean, would you feel comfortable saying if a new coach comes in, you say you need to keep Deontay Johnson, you need to keep George Pickens? We love Pickens as much as anyone, but if Pickens is giving this level of effort, he's not doing anything for you. So yeah, there's a lot of excuses, but he's also not in the right. Like I'm not sure there's anyone on offense you can say with 100%, conviction that you need them in the next stage.
But if I'm rebuilding, I care about offensive, defensive line. That's the main thing. Edge rushers are great, but everything. But no, offensive and defensive line. If you're building something, that's where it gets built. So I might say, I don't really want Broderick Jones going anywhere because at the worst case, he's one of 5 we can field. That's not embarrassing. So I feel like that's the thing though. With even the receivers that have talent and the tight ends or whatever running backs, it's like, yeah, I think let's say Jimmy Warren. I don't know how long he's going to be in the league with the style that he plays and the size that he is, but I'll take that guy. I'll take 11 of them on offense, and I'll take Broderick Jones because I feel like he's young and he has talent. But no, I don't know there's anybody else. I'll take Keanu Benton and Joey Porter, and and I guess I'll keep Alex Highsmith, although I'm not even sure that he, at the price point that he is, makes sense for a team that's in transition. But he's young enough, that I would keep him, and I would try to get the most I could get for TJ Watt because you'll never get enough for him to make it worthwhile. But it's better than seeing his ass wither on the vine for a team that's crappy the way we've seen Cam Hayward's career finish out, which is just terrible. Anyway, I'm ranting. That's what we're doing.
I'll add one last thing to that before we move on to some matchups here. Because believe it or not, there's another game we have to watch.
Oh, wow.
But I mean, I'd say there's probably 15 guys in total across the 53 I'd want to keep, and kind of like what we said, there's some young defenders that we'd like. Porter, Benton, those guys are young, upcoming. I mean, personally, I'd keep Watt and Highsmith. I know you guys talk about the picks, but I'm just talking about guys that are under contract that you potentially want to keep. I'd want to keep Minka. Flip it over to offense.
Forgot about him. Yeah.
Yeah. I was going to be pounding my fist on the table for Jaylen Warren just because that kid always tries his ass off. Broderick Jones. And maybe you keep one of the receivers just to not to have the cupboard completely bare. But yeah, I mean, right there, I only came up with 8. So
I'm still bullish on Pickens' long term of what he could be, but you've got to have it right mentally. Like how many great receivers see who pout on the field? It's not many. So you could, there's all sorts of reasons between the quarterback play and the OCs and all that why, you could say, yeah, he should be upset, but at some point you just got to put your head down and work, Yeah.
So right there, I couldn't even come up with 10. So that's pretty telling on just kind of what we think of this team. But believe it or not, this team still has 4 more games left to play. They travel to my city. They come to play the Indianapolis Colts this Saturday. That's right. They play on Saturday. Don't wait till Sunday to watch it. Maybe unless you want to wait till Sunday to watch.
I forgot this is your city. Oh my God. I'm sorry, Jeremy.
Do you get the privilege of going to this game, Jeremy?
I should have the ability to go. It's whether I want to pay to go is the other question.
Oh my God.
Yeah, I'm not really sure because I have plans in the evening, but if I go to the game's going to run into those plans in the evening, and I'm not sure if I want to sacrifice the plans in the evening to go to the game, which is that is how bad the Pittsburgh Steelers are this year, people. I'm considering maybe not going to a game that they're in Indianapolis. And that would be the first game I have not been to that's been in Indianapolis in the last decade. I've gone to every single one that's made its way here. So that's pretty telling right now of what we think of this team. But anyway, there are some matchups we need to get after. Corey, I'm going to let you go first. I know you were itching to get to this segment before we hopped on here. So what is the first matchup we need to look out for?
Yeah, I think they've got some linebackers who can play. Zaire Franklin has been arguably the top linebacker in the NFL this year. Kind of depends on what you value. But EJ Speed, he's a guy who can run. There's a guy I like, Segun Alubi. He is a third-year guy, I believe. But he, 4.4 speed. That's a guy who can run with any of our tight ends, kind of run with some of our receivers even. So, at some point to win, we're going to have to attack the middle of the field. But those guys can run too. So the O-line is going to have to be on their horse to get up and block those guys. Zaire Franklin will get TFLs if you don't get to him. Like, he will shoot the gap. He is an extremely good player. I think he's very underappreciated. I'm not sure why he doesn't really get the coverage, especially since Darius Leonard was there. It's kind of, you'd imagine a spotlight would have been shown. But they have an exciting linebacking core, at least. And, I'm sure you guys will touch on it, but their defense is pretty good throughout. Like, there's some names on there that, guys who can play.
So, yeah, I'll kind of pick it up there. And trust me, Corey, the people in this city, they love Zaire Franklin. They know who he is, so they love him to death. He's a captain on this team. I mean, he was a captain that got elected over Shaquille Leonard. So, I mean, that's pretty telling right there. Just, what the team thinks of him, and, this city is definitely all behind him. They love him to death. But, yeah, definitely got to watch out for the linebackers. But, I mean, I'll build off the defense here. Our offensive line does not have an easy week per se, especially in the middle. They've got some guys in the middle that you wouldn't really think of. DeForest Buckner, kind of gets forgotten about since he got traded away from the 49ers several years ago. But, I mean, he's been a stalwart on this defensive line. Taven Bryan, not great, but he's been serviceable, former first-round pick for the Jags.
He's a guy who can win some one-on-ones.
Yep. Well, and then another guy who's starting to play more is I am going to butcher this name, ladies and gentlemen, but Adetomiwa Adewambore. See, I know I butchered that, but the kid they drafted.
Don't worry, yeah, but dude, you haven't even mentioned the best defensive lineman they have in terms of, especially playing against the Steelers.
Well,
the guy Grover Stewart is the guy you're going to see about 1 million times as Najee Harris runs into his arms.
Yeah, I'm gonna bring him up next. But so that the 4th round pick out of Northwestern's been playing more lately. He's been helping generate a pass rush. But then the big dude in the middle, Grover Stewart, he is going to give Mason Cole earn every penny that he's owed the rest of the year. He is an absolute terror and menace against the run game, brutally strong. So just the interior of our offensive line specifically, that they have the work cut out for them, because they are not going to move. They are not going to move Grover Stewart. They're going to have troubles with Buckner just because of his length and his ability to push and just getting passing lanes, rushing lanes, all the above. So our interior of our offensive line, they have their work cut out for us.
And by the way, they're not even giving snaps to Eric Johnson. Eric Johnson would be like our 3rd best defensive lineman if we had him.
Another SteelerFury.com draft favorite right there for you.
Got that, buddy. I guess the comparison the matchup is, I'm going to take this a little differently this week. Their running game in our run defense versus our running game in their run defense. I feel like the way this matchup sets up is for Indianapolis, it looks, is Jonathan Taylor going to play, right? That's what I heard. Sounds like.
Sure. I don't think that's accurate. Let me double check, but
I know what I heard last week is they said he was close last week to playing, and they expected to play this week.
Okay, all right.
So I don't know if that's true. I mean, if it is, the speed situation for them getting to the outside against the Steelers defense that is pretty stout if you run straight at them, but to the edges they can have some issues, especially depending on their linebacker health and their edge health. So I don't know. I feel like this thing right now is like TJ, we're talking about this on Monday, which is unusual for us. Usually we do this later in the week, but right now our 2 edges are in concussion protocol. And the inside linebacker situation is for shit. So I feel like the Indianapolis run game, they have to be looking at it in practice like, okay, well, this is how we're going to win this game, is that we're going to be able to run the ball on them. They're not going to be able to count on us running inside or outside. Whereas the Steelers in this situation run their run game. They don't really have an effective run game with Najee to the outside. So pretty much when he's in the game, you're looking at the middle, and they're loaded. Indianapolis is loaded in the middle. It's not they got the defensive line, they got the linebackers who are clean because of that, and they make plays everywhere. And Jaylen Warren on the outside into screens and whatever has been the Steelers' best offense, really the most dependable thing they do on offense. It might be a tough week for that, even if you had your full complement of players on offense, which they don't. So to me, which team is able to run the ball better is like a cliche, but I actually think it makes a difference in this game, especially like finishing out the game. It may not result in the most points, but it'll definitely result in, once a team gets the lead, you're going to want to run the ball, a little bit more to solidify that, turn that into a victory. That might be tough for the Steelers to do this week. I don't know if it's a game where, they can take their foot off the gas pedal and just think we're going to turtle this away now, because I'm not sure they'll be able to do that against Indianapolis.
Yeah, I'll jump in here really quick just because I looked up some Jonathan Taylor stuff. There is some optimism that he will play this week. Shane Steichen, head coach of the Colts, did not rule that out, but kind of just they are on a wait and see approach as far as that goes.
What's the injury, Jeremy? I forget. It's been so
long. The thumb surgery, UCL tear. So I'm not super familiar with the prognosis there, but the possibility.
It's a weird injury for a running
2 weeks. Yeah, this is 2 weeks after surgery, so there's a chance he does play. There is a verified doctor on here that says week 16 is more realistic, but who gives a shit what he says?
What it sounds like to me is that he was holding on to the ball for dear life and somebody ripped it out of there, just ripped his whole arm. That's what it sounds like. Yeah, that's
right.
Terrible.
I'll throw one more guy out there that could. He hasn't been featured recently, but he was very good to start when he started playing. Was Josh Downs is a guy I'm a little worried about. We don't really have guys that can stay with him right now. I think our best case to stay with him, ironically enough, might be Shandon Sullivan, which is absolutely terrifying when you think about it. But Downs is one of those shifty speed guys that we typically have a lot of trouble with. I don't think we're going to have a lot of problems like Michael Pittman. Porter matches up pretty well with Pittman as far as, Pittman's not really a down the field threat, so he's going to have to win the physical battle with Porter there. Alec Pierce, another guy I'm not too worried about. He might be their one deep threat that can actually go up and like get a ball outside of Pittman. But again, kind of in the Michael Pittman mold there, not a true burner, not someone who's going to really run away from you unless you are just completely out of position, which don't rule that out for some of our corners. But Josh Downs is kind of a guy that gives me just a little bit of a pause. For as bad as we've been missing tackles lately, that's a guy, if you miss him once, he could be gone to the house. So just be on the lookout for him. Not that he's a true game changer, but he can definitely turn a game if you give him the opportunity to.
Yeah, and I would say that sounds like to me that Patrick Peterson and Alec Pierce, that seems like the right battle with Joey Porter, maybe with Pittman. I feel like Pittman's a bigger threat, but we'll see how they choose to approach it. That does sort of leave Josh Downs out. I got one more matchup for you.
Absolutely.
The Steelers, I don't know if you realize this, but the Steelers aren't very good at defending tight ends.
What? Never.
And I will say this. I said it last year. I said it at the beginning of this year. I don't think that the Colts have a high-end tight end like somebody like Travis Kelce or whatever, or Mark Andrews. But I think their four guys, top to bottom, are the best tight end group in the league, top to bottom. They have a lot of talent at tight end and different guys who are like, blockers who are good receivers, receivers who are okay blockers that can stretch the field. They mix it up with the tight end. So unlike a team like the Steelers, who are pretty predictable with what their tight ends are each asked to do, I think that could be a tough matchup for the Steelers, especially with their problems at linebacker, because they're not predictable. You can't see a guy like Drew Ogletree and think, oh, he's the blocking tight end. This is going to be run play because, he'll burn you. So a very good receiver for, as good a blocker as he is. So that's a matchup situation to watch out for in this game.
Yeah, well, just to kind of build off that, at one point they had 5 tight ends too. They're even
the other guy was great too. Who was the fifth guy?
Sorry,
who was the fifth guy? I remember he was also somebody I really liked.
Well, so it was Jelani Woods, but he's on IR.
Oh yeah,
I was going to say, they're not even trotting out their most talented tight end because he's on IR. You're talking about a guy who's 6'8", 270 pounds that runs and catches. That would have been a true nightmare. Mo Alley Cox and Drew Ogletree. mostly blockers, but boy, you better watch out because they can get behind you and catch passes too. I mean, Mo Alley Cox caught a touchdown last week. I'll have to give him credit. I was a big derogator of the Kylan Granson pick a few years back, and he's actually turned out to be a pretty nice utility player, mismatch type of player. At the time, I thought, good God, how many tight ends do they need? Apparently, they needed one more. And
5.
then, Will Mallory, even this past year, the rookie from Miami, he is very athletic. Someone I don't know personally, but know pretty well as he's the great grandson of Bill Mallory, who was the winningest coach at IU's football history. So just kind of knew of him coming up when he was getting recruited and everything. So just very talented group top to bottom. Typically, I always highlight that matchup every week, Will, but I don't know how many times I wanted to beat the same drum. So thank you for taking that over for me this week.
No problem.
Dude, Jeremy, a tight end who's 6'8", 270 can run. That sounds like a weapon. Sounds like a really nice kind of player to have on the roster.
No. Well, why would
Something I
that
wish we
consider a weapon?
Yeah, where would we ever find someone like that?
Yeah.
Shit.
Although
Although
guys
draft
really
with a
get the
premium
draft.
draft pick.
Although I will say this, Jelani Woods is a little bit better receiver than Darnell.
A little more fluid.
But yes, yeah, but still, yes, I agree with you. I'm with you, man.
But yep, so kind of a tough, interesting game because Gardner Minshew can sling it around. He's no schlep when it comes to passing. So, but the key is, will guys be open enough for him to get the ball? So, he's a quarterback that's kind of up and down every other week. He was down this past week, which means we'll probably see the better version of him this weekend. As my friends always like to call him Godner Minshew, because he always seems to pull something out of his ass, when the Colts really need him to.
God, that's pretty good.
But so luckily enough, this isn't the only game you have to watch this weekend. There are several more, actually some pretty good ones, even on top of this past week, which saw some good games, then some that were projected to be better games that weren't good games. There are quite a few decent games this week, and again, with so many teams in playoff contention, really in both conferences now, you're starting to get some real muddy waters. These are the weeks where teams need to start to separate. So a lot of interesting matchups here. Interesting one right off the top of the bat involves one of our division rivals. The Cincinnati Bengals are hosting the Minnesota Vikings. The Vikings made a quick change, quarterback throwing Nick Mullins, and probably the worst scoring game of the weekend. I think that game was a 3-0 win by the Vikings. Good Lord, that must have been boring to watch.
One of the worst scoring games ever.
I watched a good bit of it, by the way, just for the record.
Well, so I started watching more NFL Red Zone this past week. So
same.
Catch
they covered it a lot, right? Exactly.
Yeah, a lot more of everything, which was I might be leaning that way in the future more now. But Cincinnati's at home. They're favored by 3.5. Talk about coming off 2 wins that no one really thought they had coming with Jake Browning after he got in the ball game, and he's actually played remarkably well, for a backup quarterback. So is this the week we see him revert to the mean? I'll start off on this one. Personally, I don't think so. I think the Bengals are a pretty complete football team, top to bottom. They're not the greatest, but if there is no Justin Jefferson this week, as he left the game early this past week with a chest injury, they took him to the hospital. If he doesn't play, I think this is a very game that favors the Bengals a lot more than it does the Vikings. So I like the Bengals here in the points. Corey, we'll go to you.
Yeah,
3.5 for the Bengals. I'm sorry.
The thing that kind of gives quarterbacks the most trouble is just how exotic Brian Flores is on defense. We saw a little bit of it last year, but not to the level that he's been doing it. That this is just who he is. Ton of exotic man looks. And I think if there's one thing that Jake Browning can kind of handle, it's getting the ball out of his hands quick, just making a quick decision. May not have like outlier mobility or an arm, but he does process pretty quickly and get the ball out quickly and fairly accurately. So I don't think this is going to cause a massive issue for him like it might some other guys. So I think the Bengals are going to win off their talent. That Vikings offense has really been struggling, especially if there's no Jefferson. So I'm going to take the Bengals.
You mean the Steelers let a talented defensive coach leave? No. Huh. Didn't know we had
one of the only ones ever.
Right?
That's funny.
Well, what are your thoughts on this one?
Oh, I don't know. Like I you can't judge the NFL by like what's happened all season. I think it's easier this time of the year to judge by what's been going on lately. And what's been going on lately is that these are two teams going in opposite directions. The Bengals actually have figured out a way to win with their backup quarterback, and Minnesota is just, they just get worse and worse. Backup quarterbacks, third string quarterbacks, sometimes they can come in and have a little run. There's something we've discussed on the show before, but yeah, it's like after a little while they start to get exposed why they're backup quarterbacks. And in this case, it makes a big difference. I will take the Bengals to win outright.
All right, another interesting game coming from the NFC. Tampa Bay is headed to Green Bay. Tampa Bay is now first place in the god-awful NFC South, and Green Bay is starting to turn it around, play much better ball. We'll see if they win tonight or not. But they were actually looking like a much more complete team or better team. I don't know if I'd say complete. That's not the right word. But Will, I'll go to you first. Green Bay is at home in Lambeau, and they're favored by 3.5.
Yeah, Battle of the Bays, always fun. Just so you can say that. I think it was Chris Berman coined that, the Battle of the Bays.
What?
I feel like the Green Bay at home. I mean, I feel like these teams are sort of similar. They each have their moments where they look like they could beat a good team. They can also lose to a bad team. That's the strata that they're in. Like, in other words, a normal Steelers year is what those two look like right now. I'll take Green Bay at home, mostly because they're at home. They've been playing a little better later in the season. I know Tampa Bay came back and won last week, but I feel like that's Baker Mayfield's career. It's like every once in a while, he'll throw a thing at you where you're like, oh, he's pretty good. And then he'll stink it up for a couple of weeks. So I would expect a little bit more like that this week.
All right, Corey, how are you feeling on this one?
Yeah, it's going to be a cold Lambeau game. Love's really been playing well. I think that's the big thing for me. When you've got a quarterback playing well, it's going to be tough to beat you. So I'm not really going to think about this one too hard. Jordan Love's just been playing at a higher level than Baker Mayfield, and I think the home field advantage in 30-degree weather at Lambeau is going to be the crucial bit.
Well, this is boring. We're all thinking the same way so far when we start this off. I like Green Bay too. Kind of piggybacking off what Corey said. Jordan Love's looked like the quarterback that they thought they were going to get much later in the year than they were hoping. But you saw flashes of it in like week 1, week 2, and then it went dormant. But boy, he's been on a tear these past few weeks. And partially, I need him to be. I need him to help me win some fantasy playoff games down the stretch here. Still not in those playoffs yet, but that's where I need it to be. So I like Green Bay in the points. Probably another huge matchup this week. Definitely a lot of playoff implications on the line, especially after one of these teams lost the other day. The Baltimore Ravens head to the Jacksonville Jaguars. Right now, Baltimore is the top seed in the AFC. So if they want the road to the Super Bowl to go through Baltimore, they need to start stockpiling wins here. And Jacksonville, on the other hand, going the other way. They've lost 2 in a row now. Trevor Lawrence played okay the other day with the high ankle sprain and all that. But Corey, we'll let you start this one off. The Ravens are favored. They are getting 3.5 on the road.
This one's tough. I think the Jags, they just look discombobulated. Meanwhile, the Ravens look like a pretty complete team. They've got one of the best DCs in the NFL right now. Monken's been doing a great job. Lamar looks like he's really clicking right now. And the Jags just look the opposite. Like, they've got the pieces. They've got a lot of guys where you're like, this should be a really good offense. This defense should get sacks and pressures everywhere. And it just seems like with Jacksonville, it just never really pans out like it's supposed to in any given game. Like, I don't think they've played a complete game all year. So I'm going to roll with the Ravens here. I'm going to roll with the Ravens to cover. Jacksonville they're kind of like the Chargers of the last 2 years, where they've got guys, but they just can't string good wins together. So I'm going to take the Ravens here.
All right. Well, I'm not sure I can agree with part of what you said, because They can't be like the Chargers because they at least win ball games. But in that same regard, the one thing that hasn't been working for Jacksonville lately, their running game. When they can't run the ball, their offense becomes a lot more predictable. We've seen this with past Doug Peterson led offenses too. So I mean, it's not like this is the first time where we've seen when the running game doesn't get going, the rest of it doesn't work that well. So I like Baltimore here. They just seem to be playing at a higher level, more consistently, at least than most other teams, even though the Rams gave them everything they wanted. So if Kyron Williams can run for a bunch and do a lot, I think ETN could do a lot more, but I'm still leaning the Ravens here. Lamar Jackson's just playing better. Their weapons are getting more involved across the board. I mean, Rashad Bateman, I think, caught a touchdown this past week, like a Rashad Bateman sighting. Isaiah Likely stepped up big this week with several grabs and a big touchdown. I think it was a 54-yard touchdown for him. So the weapons across the board are getting more utilized. That defense is still pretty good, even though they gave up a lot of points. And it was a torrential downpour this past week too. So I think Marlon Humphrey is going to have a bounce back game. They kind of picked on him just because he felt like he couldn't get his footing this past week. He was just slipping and sliding all over the place. So I like Baltimore to keep going here and honestly kind of secure the top seed in the AFC moving forward. So I like them in the points. Will.
Well, boring. I will disagree with one thing you just said, but otherwise, I kind of am with Corey 100% here. I just feel like Trevor Lawrence is, he's not a bad quarterback. I was not a huge fan coming out of him being like a superstar quarterback. Solid pick, but not necessarily like a great one. And I think the thing you see with him at this stage of his career is when he's playing a really solid defense or a great defense, he doesn't quite have that ability to like take it up a notch against that kind of a team, which I think the great ones usually do. But against the average team in the league, he can look spectacular at times, and he's always capable of making a fantastic throw or two per game, regardless. I just don't think it's enough against Baltimore because, as Corey said, they're too complete. To your point, Jeremy, so I'll take Baltimore in the game. To your point, Jeremy, about the Ravens getting the number 1 seed. They are at Jacksonville this week, at San Francisco next week, and they host Miami the week after that. If they win the number 1 seed in the AFC, they are winning the Super Bowl. I do not see that happen. I mean, I like them. I think they're really a good team, but that's a tough road to hoe compared to what Kansas City or, for that matter, Cleveland has left.
Yeah. So you like Baltimore there?
I do. I like him in this game.
All right. So, and I can't believe what I'm about to say, that these two teams are still in the playoff hunt next. Chicago is traveling to Cleveland. Both of these teams are in the playoff hunt, ironically enough. And honestly, I still can't believe Joe Flacco is playing as good as he is. I mean, part of that is he's not getting hit like he has, like he did last year with the Jets. But Cleveland's getting 3 at home. I'll start off on this one. Don't know what it is, but that Cleveland team, they're just finding ways to win right now. And that's ultimately where I'm going to go with. Chicago, they're just not as consistent across the board. I feel like Cleveland can just take advantage of some little things. David Njoku has been, not shockingly enough, Joe Flacco's favorite weapon. They've been using him all over the place. That might be the one area where they can really exploit the Bears. Their linebackers are getting into the run, not super great in coverage. But I like Cleveland here. It pains me to say it, but I mean, I think they're on their way towards their 9th win if they win this week, which is incredible. Right in the thick of the playoff hunt. We'll go to you first here. Cleveland's getting 3 at home.
I texted Mark Shepard, who some of you may know from the board, Shepard MJ, who's been in our mock drafts the last few years. I said, is this the best game that Chicago has played in years? And he was like, definitely. So I feel like last week was like the best game that Chicago has played probably in at least 3 or 4 years. And that will be enough for them to rest their laurels on going into the offseason. Like, it's like they're at a stage where it's like, hey, we had a really good game. We have possibilities in the future, but they're not like building off that for the next 4 weeks. I doubt it seriously. Maybe, but I feel like Cleveland, on the other hand, if Joe Flacco stays alive, the next few weeks are actually a threat in the AFC, which is really saying something considering where they're at injury wise, but I'm not sure the Browns are going to lose the rest of the regular season. I will take the Browns at home to beat the Bears.
Sorry.
Yeah, I just don't think the Bears can string another game like last week together. I was watching that Browns game. That's part of like the reason I texted you guys. I'm like, wow, this week's crazy. It's Joe Flacco just carving up the blitz. Like he wasn't even getting touched. He was getting the ball out so quick. Like he would slide, kind of just whip one over. It was. I mean, he's been in the league for so damn long. The Browns are 6-1 at home. I don't think the Bears can string another week like that together. I feel like they're a bit amped to be playing, and Joe Flacco's playing as well as he is. It's kind of inspiring to have an old guy like that leading the team, I think. So I'm going to go with the Browns here to cover comfortably.
All right. After a big win over the Eagles this past weekend, Dallas is headed to Buffalo. Buffalo's at home, favored by 2.5. Corey, I'll let you start off.
Yeah, that's a great win by Buffalo. It was the two teams were
Buffalo
Kansas
and
City,
Kansas
right?
City. Yep.
No. This one you just said.
Dallas.
Dallas headed to
Dallas.
Buffalo.
Okay, yeah, I heard the Eagles for some reason.
I heard that Dallas won this week. Oh my God, it's like everywhere. They beat the Eagles.
Yeah, Josh Allen, Will's kind of talking about that where, it kind of feels like he hasn't gotten as much praise as he should be getting. I mean, he's been playing, so he got a lot of slander after that big interception game earlier in the season, but he's been playing some pretty good ball. The Cowboys offense is rolling. I'll give them that. Where Dak, CD have been on another level connection wise. There's been talk of CD being better than some big names, but I think it's just more of a chemistry thing. This game being at Buffalo, I think that I'm going to take Buffalo over the Cowboys. It's going to be a cold game. I think the Cowboys are due for a bit. I picked them over the Eagles. I said I picked the Eagles in the playoffs, but I picked the Cowboys for that game. Now I think the Cowboys are riding a little too high, where the Bills are a little worse than their record would indicate. So I think that those kind of even out this week. So I'm going to take the Bills at home here.
Gotcha. Always a tough one to gauge this late in the year, up and Buffalo. You never know how the weather's going to impact that. However, I think Dallas, I'm going to take Dallas for the exact reason why you didn't take them. I think they're riding so high right now, no one can shoot them out of the sky. Personally, they're just playing just fantastic football across the board. And then, that in all honesty, it felt from like the get-go that they just were going to win that Eagles game no matter what was going to happen. I just feel like they are that team that's playing arguably the best football right now, maybe in the entire NFL, and not excluding, a few others, but I feel like they're playing the best, and that's who I'm rolling with. Prescott has looked otherworldly, like a completely different quarterback these past few weeks. So I like them. I like Dallas here. Will.
Yeah, Dallas has quite a rough schedule the rest of the seasen.
They do.
I was talking about Baltimore's schedule. Dallas is at Buffalo, at Miami, home to Detroit, and then has the Redskins the last week. But the next 3 weeks for Baltimore and Dallas are going to tell a lot about not just where they're going to end up, but also both playoff pictures in the AFC and NFC. Buffalo, on the other hand, like my immediate reaction was like it'll be a letdown game for Dallas, and Buffalo at this point is also rolling. Going to be a really fun game. I think it's a great matchup, especially since Baltimore is playing at home. Makes throws in a little element of random weather and so on and so forth. I will take Buffalo to win, but I'll say this game actually doesn't mean a lot to Buffalo in terms of their playoff situation. As much as they're in desperation mode. Basically, their game against Miami in Week 18 is the be all end all for them. They play 2 games the next 2 weeks that they should, after Dallas, that they should win. So as long as they win those 2 games and beat Miami, they're going to be in the playoffs. So, and I think they're a team that doesn't, just getting in the playoffs at this point, the way their season has gone, will be enough for them, and they'll be a threat. So, yeah, there's a possibility that Buffalo knows this, and they don't. It's an NFC opponent, and it's not quite as important. But I think they're, as much as Dallas is rolling, Buffalo's rolling too, and they're tough at home. I'll take the Bills.
Right. Well, let's go ahead and get to our game. Might have been one more, Philly at Seattle, but I just feel like Philly's got to rebound at some point here.
Yeah.
We'll just cap it at that. So, our 0-star matchup of the week. I just can't call it a 5-star matchup right now, guys. I know it's against show tendency to call it a 0-star matchup, but that's the level we're playing at right now. Pittsburgh comes up to my city. They come to Indianapolis, take on the Colts. The Colts are favored at home by 3, which basically means this game's a wash when you think about it. Will, I'll let you start here, buddy.
I think
give us
if
a prediction and a score.
I think if the teams were healthy, if this game was played, week 3 or whatever, right? or even week 8, I think their teams are very evenly matched, and I thought that Indianapolis would probably win a close game at home, or at least it would be a very close call for the Steelers to win. Like, kind of have to do everything right. It feels like the Steelers' offense right now, without Kenny Pickett, especially, and even with Kenny Pickett, it's so dependent upon solid running game setting everything else up for them. They're not even thinking of winning games by let's come out and throw the ball and get to the point where we can loosen them up and then run the ball to throw to the score, run to the win. That's the sort of like the 2005 Steelers playoff run mentality. They're not even really able to do that right now. If they don't get that solid running game, it's tough. And they have, in the last couple of weeks, as the running game has been kind of declining, so I feel like this is not the team to rebound your running game against. I feel like they're pretty solid that way. That's going to make it hard for the Steelers to win. It's probably going to end up being a very close game. I will take Indianapolis 23-20 in this game. Steelers' problems health-wise on defense and the inability to run the ball consistently against the Colts is going to do them in, unfortunately.
Okay. You said 23-20. Okay, Corey, what are your thoughts, bud?
Yeah, one thing that kind of sticks in my head, I've had coach tell me this, is it's never as good as it seems, but it's also never as bad as it seems. I just have a tough time, as low as we are on Tomlin right now, I have a tough time seeing that we don't bounce back at least a little bit. I think after those 2 horrible losses, this just screams ugly but scrappy win. Kind of almost similar to that Ravens game that kept Matt Canada around earlier in the season, where we kind of cling to victory. It wasn't pretty. It doesn't really inspire you for the future, but it kind of keeps the ship upright. Mm-hmm. Where I think I'm going to say this is a 20-17 win. I'm just saying I think it's solely because these 2 losses were so bad that this one almost has to be a win, just because that's kind of Steelers brand of football. So 20-17 will be my pick, and it's going to be ugly.
I buy that logic. I buy that.
Oh boy, that means I have to pick now. I haven't really made up my mind which Steeler team I'm going to see yet this weekend. But no, I'm just joking.
They're going to look good on Sunday, Jeremy.
Yeah, I don't need them to look good on Sunday. We need them to look good on Saturday. So, boy, I'm still a little torn about which team we're going to see. Kind of have to side with Corey here. I feel like after just 2 gut-wrenching, horrible, like franchise record-altering 2 losses like that, you would have to think you start to see the better version of this team show up. And that's but where the doubt creeps in my mind is, are Highsmith and Watt still on concussion protocol? I tend to think they'll probably be out of it at this point. So, I guess color me optimistic there. Does the offensive line play better than what they have been playing? Hopefully, because we need to run the ball. Right now, I just can't get on board with this team. I don't care who we have out there. I think Shane Steichen's the better coach at the end of the day. I think we're going to see some creative offensive play calling. It's a team that loves to go for it on 4th down. That he's a big analytics guy. So I just think at the end of the day, the Colts offense is going to do just enough to win this game. I do think it's going to be very ugly. I'm going to go like 17-10. I think there's even less points than what you guys are thinking. Not by much, but I think it'll be even that more low scoring. I think this will be a team, on both sides of the ball. You're going to see like 5 good offensive drives put together all game long, and the Colts are just going to have one more better drive than the Steelers. So right now, I think the Colts are going to win 17-10. Hate to say it, because every game I've been to here in Indy has resulted in a Pittsburgh win. They've never lost when I've been up here and gone. So maybe I do need to go just to get this franchise out of the shitter.
Reversion to the mean, man.
Right.
I'll say this: these next 2 weeks this is the last stand for never had a losing season, because I really don't think you want to be counting on going to Seattle and Baltimore the last 2 weekends and figure out a way to win to keep that streak alive. Because these 2 games are it. They win the next 2, they got it in the bag. They're probably not going to make the playoffs, but at least they're going to have that non-losing season. But
let Tomlin go out on a shield.
Well, I mean,
hoisted on his own petard, as they like to say.
Yeah, I mean, you say the next 2 games. I mean, obviously we need to win Sunday, but I mean, right now, I don't see us beating the Bengals with Jake Browning, even if we are healthy. I mean, I really don't. I think the one team that you might see us, be able to salvage that is, maybe, let's say we win this week. I see Seattle more of a realistic opportunity for a win than the Bengals at this point, is.
You know how they've never lost in Indianapolis since you've been there? I don't think they've won in Seattle either. I don't know, man. Fair. It's a week-to-week league. Things have a way of changing, so it's hard to predict what will happen 2 weeks from now. But we'll try our best.
Yeah, we'll try our best. So, thank you all again for tuning into another episode here at the SteelerFury.com podcast. I'm your host, Jeremy Coleman. You know me as Smith is Smoking on the message boards. Joined by Will Massack, you know him as Bradshaw to Ben, and Corey Karbowski, you know him as Corey39.
We know Corey Karbowski as a college graduate who now has to enter the workforce. Poor guy.
Yeah, poor guy.
Congratulations.
Yep, congratulations, Corey. Now you can get on with your life's work, as I was told when I graduated.
That's it, man. All right.
All right. Well, thank you all again. We will see you when we see you.
Go get them, Steelers.